Hello and welcome to Community Business Matters. I'm Andy Radig of Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, and I'm joined today by my co-host Carla Lenk of SCORE. And we have a special guest today. We have Patrick Gotz of Awards and More here in Wisconsin Rapids.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for allowing me to spend some time with you guys today.
Well, thanks for being with us.
You
we
bet.
appreciate your time and for coming in today.
You bet.
So, Awards and More. We think of an award store, but I understand that it's a lot more than what people might just think. So, if you might be able to just give us an overview and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So, Awards and More, and we have Awards and More out on our sign at 1210 Pepper Avenue,
Okay.
In Wisconsin Rapids, but we're really Rapids Awards and More because we're a Rapids-focused, Central Wisconsin community, and that's why we wanted to do it, not only from that aspect, but also from a legality aspect as well. Mm-hmm. And the more part of Awards and More, everybody thinks of the previous ownership when Larry and Rosie Anderson had it, and honestly, they were like my grandparents. They were just the neatest people, and just working with them. And when we had the transition, I actually kept Larry on from a consultant perspective,
sure.
Because I didn't want to miss a beat. Because
Right. The consistency.
they had established themselves for 25 plus years in the community, and when you've got that kind of a reputation, you don't want to miss anything.
Right.
And but the more part of Awards and More, and we've expanded on from what Larry and Rosie had initially did. And, everything from the sublimation to the glassware, good heavens, we've gotten into so many more aspects, T-shirts. We're starting to do a little bit of embroidery. We're just on the ground level with that. But, and then just engraving a heck of a lot more guns. I mean, you name it, there's probably there's not too many things that we're not able to engrave.
Okay. So people might be surprised that they can actually have something personalized that they might not realize that they could.
Exactly. And a lot of times, individuals, case in point, as of the taping of the show, yesterday I had an individual that came in, and he had chatted with me a week ago, and he said, "Hey, can you engrave on guns?" And I said, "Okay, so what kind of a gun are you looking at?" He said, "It's an automatic." I'm always a little bit reluctant to work on something like that because of the magnitude associated with it. Yeah. And he brought it in, and we were able to put together a template, did some testing associated with it, and had a finished product for him, and he was ecstatic over it. So it was they're neat pieces, but it's just like because you've got one shot to do them. I mean, and that's what makes us really unique from the rest of individuals that are out there engraving.
And you touched on it a little bit, but how did you get into the whole thing and into this business?
Well, it goes back to my history.
Yeah.
And I was a marketing director with a sports collectibles company out of Detroit, but I worked out of the house in Wisconsin Rapids.
Okay.
And so I would solicit individuals from across the United States, and being a marketing director, we did a lot of traveling, and we were doing a national sports collectibles show in Cleveland, Ohio, and all of a sudden I had contracted with a plastics manufacturer, which is called Ball Cube. And Ball Cube they are the only U.S. patent, have the only U.S. patent on square cubes, and that's baseball, football, basketball, golf. So I mean, they're the only ones that have it. There's other patents that are out there, but that's how this thing all came about.
Is it like a trophy ball, or everybody signs?
That's exactly. So you can put your autographed baseballs or autographed footballs in these cases, and so the company that they had contracted with did all the engraving at that point. And so when we were out at the show in Cleveland, they this other company sent in all this product. which was fantastic. And all of a sudden, I'm opening up the packages, and I'm like, wow, this is not up to my expectation, because it was very light. You could hardly see it.
Oh.
And so I was very concerned. So I called the individual up that I had been working with, and I said, we're gonna do the best that we can, and but I just want you to know it's not up to my expectations. And I sent him off some images, and then he said, and it was shortly after that, and he said, well, who would you recommend to do it? And I said, well, me. And that's basically what happened. I mean, the company I had been working with, the owner, we had 12 employees at that point, and he didn't really need any money, and his accountant told him, you know what, you guys can, everybody take a nice little vacation, and nobody ever came back. So that's really how it all started. And you know, as I was trying to figure out, 2 weeks after the fact, and I'm like, what am I going to do with myself? And you know, I've got a radio background. I mean, I've got magazines and a lot of aspects associated like that. And I'm like, you know what? This engraving thing, this intrigues me. And so I called an individual out of the Waukesha area. He came up, did a demo for me, signed the paperwork that day. I was so impressed, and 2 weeks later, I was engraving. So I mean, self-taught. I've been doing this for 16 plus years, and I started in my back office at home.
Okay.
So you were actually doing some work for engraving with Larry Anderson?
Well, I didn't. How that all developed was while I was engraving. After I bought the machine, and things were really starting to take off. And next thing I know, I'm doing projects for the Cubs organization. I'm doing projects for Major League Baseball. I did an entire pallet full of baseball cubes for the Japanese All-Star game. So I mean, we're talking, and it was really starting to take off. And then I got a call from Renaissance Learning, and so I went to work over there because I needed the insurance. And when you have a small family, that's what you do. But in the meantime, I kept right on engraving, and but that's part of my farm background. You work until it's done, and Renaissance was very accommodating at that point, and things have eventually led to where they are today.
And so you've had a wide variety of clients, it sounds like.
Yes. Well, so speaking of clients, okay, so I think one of the most interesting individuals I have ever met, and you're probably familiar with him. If you're a Packer fan, you would be familiar with him. If you're a Dancing with the Stars fan, you would be familiar with him, and it's Donald Driver. So back in 2010, my only goal was to meet Donald Driver. I just
didn't want to dance with him.
No, well, at that point he was not dancing, so he was dancing on the football field.
Yes, yes, dancing quite well on the football field.
That's right. But I just had this fascination with him, and I'm not starstruck by a lot of players. There's only one player that has ever done that to me, and that was Reggie White. But everybody else, it's like we're just talking. We're just having a great conversation. So I took my two boys with me, and we went to, this is the last year of the Green Bay Packer when they were doing autographs, and then they would bring in some of the senior players, and then they would bring in some of the current day players. Well, Donald was one of them. Oh. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, and this is part of my marketing background. What can I do that will stand me out from everybody else? So I started thinking about it. So I engraved 2 full-size bats. Because Donald Mr. Driver was doing the celebrity softball event at that point.
Correct.
So I did 2 bats with that engraving on there, and I was fortunate enough to get a lottery ticket to his actual autograph, and so I'm standing in line, and this is such a great story. There's a young lady of about 71 in a wheelchair, and gruff. And she's the very first individual in line. She takes her 8x10 and she pushes it across the table and she says, "Donald, I love you." He got off his chair leaned across the table, and he kissed her on the cheek.
Oh.
And to me, that showed exactly what he was all about.
Mm-hmm.
And the gals in line were sobbing because that just meant so much.
Mm-hmm.
When I got up to, we got to remember, I have 14, 15 individuals, behind, and all of a sudden I got up and I said, "Mr. Driver, I'd like to present you with your very own engraved bat." And he looked at me and he was just stunned. I mean, just totally stunned. And it's like, and I said, "I'm going to give you one bat, but I would like one bat, autographed." Mm-hmm. And he's like a little kid, and he's like, "Man, this is like the best. I can't believe this." And he's just jumping up and down. And my son, who at that point, it's my Navy son, and at the point, he's like, he goes, "Hey, Mr. Driver," he goes, "why don't you and my dad take some pictures?" So we got the pictures with him and holding the bat. And it was 3 months later, I got a call from Donald Driver, and we ended up doing, it was 100, he wanted 200 bats for his event.
Oh my goodness.
And you got to remember, I'm working full time too.
Right.
So I mean, it was, it's, charity hurts.
One thing leads to another.
and that's exactly right. But we ended up doing, and I asked him, I said, "How many bats do you really need for the autographed guests?" Yeah. And he said, "Well, for the celebrities." And he said he needed 40. I said, "Okay, that's great." Mm-hmm. I said, "Okay, let's make this a collectible thing." Yeah. I said, "Your number is 80. Let's number the bats, 1 of 80, 2 of 80, 3 of 80. Mm-hmm. And he's like, That's why you're on board. That's why you're on board with this project." And so he was very, very excited, very appreciative. Bat number 12 of number 80. Bat number 12, Aaron Rodgers, Donald Driver. They both signed it. That bat went for the highest dollar amount that day, over $1,700. Wow. And at the end of the event, he told me, he shared that information with me. Oh. And he was just so appreciative and just excited about everything. I mean, he is as true of an individual as you could. I mean, what you see is what you get. He's just that kind of an individual. Mm-hmm. So I mean, but that's one really, really good story, from that perspective of who I've worked with.
You have that marketing professionalism in back of you. I mean, I would not think of doing the numbers on it, Mm-hmm. 80, what did you say, 80?
80, so, right, and when you number them.
The number on
right.
his jersey.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's just it. But, and I think that's part of working, as a marketing director with the Sports Collectibles Company, and previous to that, I was at Crosley Publications, and I worked in their sports division. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, I learned an awful lot about what you should do, what to look for, in the autographed industry, and I worked with the FBI, and we put some really bad people away. Oh. Wow. So I mean, it was that was a very eye-opening aspect, and I've always said for individuals that look to autographs, and that's not what we do at Awards and More, but we work with autographs and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. Always know who the heck you're dealing with, know their background, and if you don't feel comfortable with somebody, don't buy from them. Mm-hmm. And if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Is.
Yes,
sure.
And that's just it. So I mean, but that's I share that with a lot of individuals.
Mm-hmm. Like when somebody comes in and maybe they're not quite sure what type of product they need, you might be able to sort of steer them to something because of having worked with those types of events and those types of situations.
Exactly. Case in point, got a call, and I'll put out the name. So one of the paper mills had called me 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock it was on a Tuesday, and they had a meeting coming up on a Thursday, and they said
in the same week.
The same week, they said, "Can you get this turned around?" And okay, and they're like, "Okay, here's what we're thinking," and I'm like, "Okay." So I said, "All right, here's what my recommendation is." So I said, "Why don't we do a cutting board? I've got these round cutting boards because they wanted to give some wine, and then so I had asked, what are you specifically going to be giving? And so they said, we're going to give some wine away. I said, okay, that's perfect. I said, how about this? How about a small little cutting board we'll do the state of Wisconsin as an outline. We'll put a little star highlighting where you're at on the map, and then we'll put your logo on the cutting board.
And we have a picture of
And
that.
you actually have a picture, right? That'll be coming up here. And so I mean, and then as you open the cutting board, the little round cutting board, you've got the wine accessories on the inside.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, they were so grateful that we could turn that around in a very quick time frame. And it was funny, after I sent off the image of what we were talking about on the phone, I got a call back 5 minutes later. Hey, we're also giving some Point beer as well.
Oh.
And I said, oh, okay, well, this is pretty neat. And I said, and she had asked if I had a certain, if I had some wood bottle openers. I said, I don't have any wood ones. I said, but how about this? So I said, I've got these metal ones, but I can do full colored images on the metal bottle openers.
Oh.
And I said, and how many individuals are we talking about? And they said 4. I said, okay, on the other side of the bottle opener, let's put their names on there. So we personalized it it just took it to another level. So we were able to turn that around in their time frame, and it was fantastic. And
How did you ship them?
well, I didn't ship them out. Okay, they picked them up, and they're going to China. So that's pretty neat. So, and I've got, I think totally. And I think I've got a cutting board too. It's a state of Wisconsin board that actually went to Turkey. We've had, I think there's 12 to 15 different countries that we've had product actually go out. So I feel pretty blessed from that standpoint that there's people think highly enough of us to have product actually leave the country. So one of the big things that we really started getting into, and that is cemetery markers. And not only for humans, but also for dogs, cats. And so here's a piece right here that we recently did. And in the meantime, there's a couple of other images that I think will pop up on the screen that we have done. And it's a process where you can actually print right on aluminum, and the aluminum is Wisconsin. It's a tough environment, but it's got a 10-year warranty on it that it can actually withstand the environment.
Okay.
So I mean, it's but from a technological standpoint, that's one of the really new pieces. It's been around for a long time, but nobody really just understands how to use it, and it's all part of the testing, the testing of pieces that we specifically do at the store, and and I have to feel pretty confident before I'm going to let it leave. I mean, that's a big piece.
What other types of products do you sell and prepare?
Sure.
All I can see is the back of them, so you'll...
Right. We're sort of looking at the backside from our perspective here, but
So one of the we do in dog urns. I mean, this is kind of a piece right here that we've done.
Sure.
And
sure.
just recognizing, and I had a young lady, and it was a great story. She needed she had 2 kitty cats that had passed away, and so I did a split screen on the urn. So half of it was one of the kitties, and the other half was on the other one. And matter of fact, I saw her during the Vesta dog in Kellner, and she's like, "Do you remember you did that?" I remember, and I mean, there's not too many things that I don't remember, and we go through a lot of projects. Life is just busy for a lot of individuals, and I mean, and I get that, I understand that. Case in point with this urn, and I think I've got a picture of the purple urn that we did.
We'll put that up.
That was, I'll tell you what, that was humbling. That was humbling for me, because, I always say, well, geez, I like 2 weeks. You know what? Death does not take a holiday.
No.
And so this received a call 3:00 in the afternoon, and it was on a Thursday. We were able to do. I did a test of it, and then they said, "Can we have it ready by 9:00 tomorrow morning?"
Oh, gee.
And I went, "Wow." And he goes, well, he goes, you know, and he started to get into it. And you don't need to explain. I understand. So I put a template together, and then I had to leave the building because sometimes you just need to clear your head and just make sure that everything is right. And sometimes you get very antsy, very jumpy about doing projects like that because this is a lifetime here.
Sure.
Okay. So the bottom line, associated with it, I went to get some coffee, gave myself a 15, 20-minute break, came back in, and then started. And sometimes I say a prayer if I feel the need to do it, and I'm looking for the God's grace, and that's all part of what we do because it's there's so much because you're dealing with death on a daily basis, whether it's a dog, cat, an individual. I mean, it's just that's all part of it, and I think just based on my background, I'm very blessed that I can read people, and I just have that that ability that my mom gave me to just be able to talk to people and just not afraid of doing that. Anyway, they picked it up the next morning. It was great. Turned out fantastic. So the story is like this. Okay, so this mom was coming up with her 2 daughters. She had cancer.
Oh.
She died in the vehicle. They cremated her here, and then she went back in the urn. So that was. So I mean, but they were just ecstatic over it. There's another really, really good. We also do dog takes, and a lot of people come in and they're, case in point, and I have fun with this. We started doing some glow-in-the-dark dog takes as well.
Oh.
And then even with Wisconsin dog takes. Use guys.
Use guys.
Okay, I mean that's a Wisconsin saying, and
Also Minnesota.
Well, and for those purple people eaters, real dogs were purple. Go Vikes. So I mean, it's but we customize these for a lot of individuals, and we just do so much customization.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
And those glow in the dark.
Yes, I've got the glow-in-the-dark dog takes as well. Here's another piece that has really it's really kind of it's been going on for a number of years, but the pop sockets. Okay, these you put on the back of your phone. And it's okay. So if you've got your phone, all of a sudden you stick it on the back, but we've personalized these, and we're working with a number of schools, and it's a great fundraiser for the for the teachers. I mean I've
certainly
I've said there isn't too many things that we have not been able to engrave, and just the customization, the personalization. The one-on-one, which you cannot get online.
Right.
And I mean, so many times people come in and they go, "We bought this online. Can you fix it?"
Okay.
There you go.
Have you seen any trends in the types of things that people are ordering?
Yes, and it's the cups. The cups. I mean, it's amazing. With these are like the hottest things. The wine cups like this, your coffee cups, for example. I mean, there's just so many different things that you and colors. Colors are big, but this has been like the latest trend for like the last 3 years, and it just hasn't gone away. So I mean, that's pretty doggone exciting. From that perspective.
Sure.
But that's a big trend.
What has been the most rewarding thing for you as a business owner?
Sure.
And in this world?
It's you get done doing a project, and I've got so many stories, and it's people. I don't think people get this. I mean, I've got a lifetime of stories, working in that store and just working in the industry, and they never get old because with every trophy, with every cup, there's always a story. And it means a lot to various individuals because it's like whether it's the firefighter, whether it's the nurse,
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's just dogs. I mean,
Yeah.
and everybody loves their pets. They just love their pets, and you know, it's just to me, it's very satisfying, and I get to use my creative background, you know, from a design perspective, and then just
Certainly.
just being able. Here, case in point, there was a gentleman, or there was a gal. A couple of sisters came in. Their dad had passed away, and they said, "Well, we're looking for a little bit of a, you know, something put on the outside of the urn." And I said, "Tell me about your dad." And so they started telling me, and I knew what I was going to do. I mean, I knew immediately after hearing the story associated with it.
Sure.
And you know, so again, that's that great intuition, ability, whatever you want to call it. You know, God's presence. You know, because I can hear exactly what's going on. They came in, did it, and looked at it, and here I did a picture of Lambeau Field, #1 Packer fan, and it was kind of a frozen crescendo in front of Lambeau, and it was just gorgeous, and they just loved it.
Wow.
They came back in 3 months later. One of the daughter's sons wanted that same image put on a canvas so he could remember Grandpa in his room.
Wow.
Oh,
and
that's
I mean,
fantastic.
and you know, I hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
hair stands straight up on their arms.
That really meant something to them.
Yeah, it did. It did. So,
Can you remind our viewers again of the address?
sure. So the address is 1210 Pepper Avenue, and if you're looking for landmark, ODC, and we're right on the corner of 12th and Pepper. So I mean, just past ODC. So
Okay.
that's where we're at.
That's Awards and More in Wisconsin Rapids. Is there anything else, Van Patrick, that you'd like to tell us about or close out with today?
Well, you know, one of the big things that we're seeing, people are going online. We are moving towards that, but I still have to have that personal touch with individuals because that's what has set us apart from everybody else. And we do have a web presence. It's awards, the letter N, more .us. I could not get the .com because there's an Awards and More in Eau Claire. So anyway, but that's what's going on with that. But you will be able to purchase
Actually,
online.
that's pretty nice because many people buy something, then in the back of it they say made in China
Yes.
or
Yeah.
Taiwan or someplace like that.
That's right. So I mean, but anyway, that's what I'd like to, you know, that's a process, and I mean, websites are not easy, and you know,
Well, I know I found you on Google, so it didn't take long.
that's a great thing, and I would imagine a couple of different addresses along with it.
I think the Eau Claire store came up also, but you were right there, so no worries.
Well, that's good. That's good. You bet.
And part of what we always try to remind folks on the program also is to patronize your local businesses. You know, that's an important part of the economy, and it's important for folks that are here, your neighbors and friends. So please do so. Well, I think we're at about the end of our time.
Very good.
But it's been a pleasure, Van Patrick, having you on the program today.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate it. And you know what? When you talk about local, I am such a huge advocate of buying local because too often we get lazy, and it's like, oh, I can just go online to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, but that's when you shop local, you're saving a job. I mean, you really are.
Well, for Carla, I'm Andy Radig of Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, and we'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.